Hey, hi everyone. Thank you so much for joining another Lead Squared Roundtable. Very warm welcome to everyone who's joined, and thank you so much for giving us your time. Today, we are discussing how Indian MFIs can leverage digital to offset external shocks. So, that's quite a mouthful, but you will come to know more about it throughout this session. So, we have a great panel for us today. Let's start with our first speaker. We have Miss Purvi, who is the co-founder and MD at Pehel Financial Services Private Limited. We also have Dr. Kalpana Shankar, who is the Managing Director of Belstar Microfinance Limited. And we have Mr. Vivek Tiwari, who is the MD, CIO, and CEO of Satya Micro Capital Limited. With that, let me also give a very brief introduction for our moderator, Mr. Nilesh Patel, who is the co-founder and CEO at Lead Square. So looking forward to a great discussion here. Before we kickstart this, let me just tell the audience, we are here to take your questions. So please keep them coming, put them on the question panel, and we will take them up towards the end of the session. The expert panel here will answer them. With that, over to you, Nilesh.
Thank you so much, Shibani. Thank you for kickstarting another session in this BFSI space, which we have been doing for a while. So thank you so much, and thank you so much for Purvi, Dr. Kalpana, Vivek ji for joining this program with me. I think the MFI, of course, is a well-regarded space now, and so much has happened in the country, and the underserved have been served by the credit needs of those people who are underbanked and never got a bank account are being served by the MFI segment. But at the same time, the scale of this country, the challenge of dealing with low tickets, and just a lot of manual and human intensive part of the segment, it will offer its own challenges, and how the technology is being used to solve different parts of the business process. So I thought we'll come together and sort of have a little conversation to learn how you all are doing in your respective businesses and what challenges you still are trying to solve. So I think the first question, and maybe I'll start with the Vivek ji. As you would have seen, you've been associated with the industry for a very long time, and so as you see the challenges over last 5-10 years, how do you see there've been multiple shocks in between? Demon was there, so GST was there, COVID was there. But as you traverse in the past 5 years journey, or maybe 10 years, what are the challenges which were there earlier, and what are the new challenges which you see, and which you have sort of gone in between with these shocks coming in between?
Thank you so much, Nilesh ji, for giving me this opportunity and Lead Square. When I go back 10 years from today, almost the similar time we have faced the AP crisis in Andhra Pradesh in 2011, almost on the similar dates, means it was almost 15th October when we faced the crisis. And this was the time when we were almost unorganized sector and less recognized sector, and less governed and controlled sector at that particular time. From there to having the small finance bank licenses, universal bank licenses, and grown from scratch to almost 3 lakh crore portfolio till now, including the banks and SFBs, those who have grown from the sector. And facing different challenges, the industry has bounced back in different way. And our recognition, our strength was realized by almost all the stakeholders within the country and even outside the country. The best innovation that has taken place in last 5 to 6 years, especially at the peak of the crisis of demonetization, it was the digitization. Demonetization has put us in a pressure that we should digitize our process, we should digitize our cash, we should digitize our model. And in last 4-5 years, it is a micro fintech like companies, means we all are working as a micro fintech now on the ground, where almost the most of the processes are digitized, and real-time data analysis is there, and decision making is there. So these things have changed. Means if I remember my career 20 years before, even 1,000 rupee loan and dealing, it was a paperless, because everything was just on a commitment, just on a DP note signature was there. But after the KYC norm and everything, things have changed. But now we are having eKYC, video KYC, e-sign, almost paperless in our operations, and digital collections, zero cash in our system. That the system has been developed as a microfinance in the last 5 to 6 years. So that is a great development.
Got it. So I think the fact that government has made so much improvement on the infrastructure on the KYC side is of course enabled, as you said, the whole digital. Let me move to Kalpana ma'am, and take your view on since the digitization has already started. I won't say it has concluded, because it's a journey for everyone to improve the business processes or all aspects of the business from reducing the human intensive nature in wherever it's possible. It's not entirely possible. So when you look at it, how did you adopt in your environment, and what benefits you've seen of those those digital initiatives, and where you got the most benefit?
Okay.
Ma'am, can you hear me?
Is it addressed to me? Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
Can you hear me? Yeah.
Bellstar is following both SHG and JLP model for on-lending. We used to have group meetings, center meetings prior to COVID. It has got disrupted now. So we need a long-term tech solution for conducting meetings. And another issue which we are grappling with is migration of clients. So the opportunities after COVID is we are looking at digital repayment. Bellstar, it is about 10% at digital collections now. We aim to be at 85% in another 2 years. And 70% of families, we did a study of our clients. We analyzed that 70% of them families have smartphone, but access to women is a bit limited. It's about only 12%. So the product developed should actually be cognizant of that. Only then the digital initiatives can be successful. Major problem which I see is the customer behavior. I was reading a book where they're talking about the borrowing from 2004 to 2016. They say income has gone up only by 5%, but the borrowing has increased by 25%. So it is something which we have to worry as an industry in the long term, because a lot of debt is going towards consumption. So that is arrested. I think it's a resilient industry can bounce back. But people should ensure that they're using it for livelihoods. But the entire money should not be used for consumption. And lot of scope for product innovation because of after COVID, and we are having climate change affecting several geographies. We never had floods like this in Kerala before, so we have to come up with new products to help clients cope with the climate change problems. And what COVID has done is credit scoring models have improved. It's all they're having different templates. So the quality of underwriting has greatly improved. We are using scrub data science to understand the consumer behavior. So to manage the delinquent customers, this is proving to be a very crucial intervention. And government has also come with a lot of interventions like BTS, which is helping clients to make payment. Several people who are affected, they do not lose their wages or come to the branch to make repayment. They are able to use the digital platform, but we have to work on their like the transformation has to happen. There's only 10%. We have to use our staff members and the communities to train so that it becomes the movement, and 85% of our clientele are able to do digital payments.
Got it. So I It was a little bit of I could not hear the whole some part of the initial part of the points you mentioned, but what I did catch was that there has been an impact on due to climate change, because livelihoods have been impacted basis the floods and some other things which are not controlled by us, by human beings. So that has impacted the business cycle. And I believe you said that the new products are need to be innovated to sort of serve the emerging need. But what is worrisome, you mentioned, was the incomes have risen less and the credit has increased, which I think is actually a worrying sign. But fundamentally, from a digital side, the credit assessment, the credit check has seen a vast improvement from the bureau side, and the collections has seen some movement. These two seems like a good contribution to the business process, the way you are running. So let me bring in Purvi, your perspective into this debate, into this discussion, wherein one is to see what you've observed as trends in the business from a where digitization has been adopted and used. So one is to see get your inputs on where you had seen the most effectiveness of those, A, and B, as you see forward, where you see the businesses, the MFIs will see more adoption or focus from their side to say, okay, I would like to improve and invest in this area. This is an area where I think we can, there's a low hanging fruit to kind of go and conquer. So love to hear where you've seen today, and then or last few years, and where you see as you move forward next 5 years.
So, like Vivek was mentioning, every crisis in microfinance industry always brings in, little more speed to the change that any which way is happening. So like last time when demonetization happened, our entire cash disbursement was, removed, and we started disbursing into the bank accounts. And this time, I think the focus is more on digitizing even the collection part of it. But at an industrial level, the government's initiative of JAM Trinity, which is Jan Dhan, Aadhaar and mobile, a major push on that is really helping us. Because of the Jan Dhan accounts, we are able to disburse in the customer's account. So everywhere, 100% collections have moved to the bank account. Aadhaar is now linked, so we are able to pull out the credit bureau reports very efficiently, and mobile obviously is helping for all these digital initiatives. So JAM Trinity in last 5 years has played a very important role for the sector. And coming to digitization and the challenge that microfinance industry goes through at the time of every crisis, I'm not talking about the liability side for the sake of this discussion, but I'm talking more on the field level operations. As soon as there is some crisis happens, immediately the impact would be on the productivity of people. So suddenly, the same number of people, they are required to make multiple attempts to do the collection, and hence the business gets impacted in a short term. And of course, you need more effort in collection. So that also results into attrition. So all these things, once we move to digitization of collections, like the disbursements have already moved digital for most players now. And that is helping us standardizing processes now we are doing geotagging of customers. So all this, microfinance is a very manpower intensive business. So with the help of digitization, if you have done some of your processes right, like onboarding of customer, tagging them, and training them with the digital payments, the likelihood of you getting impacted is much lesser. And some small little things, as Kalpana ji also mentioned, this climate related things are likely to happen more often than what we have seen in the past. So at least you are more ready to deal with those external shocks if your processes are right.
And Purvi, if I may ask, and Kalpana ji, Vivek ji, anybody can come in. If you and I'm not very conversant with the MFIs outside India. Whatever I've seen is here. If you compare the quality of processes, the digitization levels we have in this country, how do you see and compare them with outside world wherever these models are? I know Bangladesh has some model similar. Where I think they were pioneers in some ways. So what is that we know already, and if you can share with the audience, love to hear. Anyone can go.
And
Nilesh,
sorry.
yeah, please.
No, no, I'm just saying that M-Pesa in Kenya, in Africa, has been an excellent initiative. M-Pesa is where, a lot of transactions are moved to digital, and that includes even the microfinance related transactions. So M-Pesa, I think, is implemented in about 8 countries in Africa, and that has been super successful there. But, when the M-Pesa was launched in India by the mobile service provider, it didn't take off really well. Maybe it was a little ahead of time, but now we are seeing that increase in the UPI transaction here as well. But it is working very well in African countries.
Interesting.
When you compare Indian microfinance with global microfinance, my observation is that the Indian microfinance companies, we are having the lowest lending rate all across the globe. Whatever we are offering to our customer, that is the cheapest loan we are offering to the customer, that is one. And our operating cost is lowest all across the globe. Means the way we are, our process and systems are controlled and automated, that is lowest. We are operating in the range of 6 to 7%, where the globally the operating cost is in the range of 10 to 15%. That is normal operating costs outside India. Even in Bangladesh, where the most matured microfinance is there, and I have visited Asa, Grameen, break in Bangladesh almost for 5 years before. My comment was with ASA was that we claim them that this is the most efficient MFI, and if ASA was in India with that operating cost, even they were not able to survive in India. They are having almost 25 to 30% savings from the customer side, and even in our country means we are not allowed to do savings. Our loan products are quite restricted by the central bank, and even we are able to survive and we are able to bring the efficiency in our system.
Bro.
The distance is there.
Yes, TGAP has come up with 3 public meetings on digitization, how we can make it a successful experience in India, because they've analyzed the digital models across the globe. And one, I noted 2 or 3 major findings. One of the reports that KSMA talks about the importance of customer-centric products. They say like MFI invest in very sophisticated, high-end systems customers are not able to use, and they found out like 75% use their mobile less than 1 day in 30 days. That is the finding of GSMA. So the product developed should be suitable for the customer, and how training the community has helped to retrain customers. That was one more interesting part from the CGAP book. And I feel that hybrid model of human interface plus technology can be helpful. And but those who have done it properly, all of them claim that digitization has reduced the cost to serve customers. And ultimately, if we share the benefit of cost reduction with the clients, I think the model will definitely have a lot of advantages. There will be more takers, and but the flip side is we have to have proper systems to prevent data breach, uh, theft during of data during network downtime, then biometric identity breach. These are some of the things which African countries, although they have gone ahead with digital disbursement and connections, these are the challenges currently facing. So I think we should have something robust, and our model, like digital solutions, next 2 3 years will be an interesting phase in the microfinance sector. All of us will be opting for it. Absolutely right. It is 100% digital disbursement. So our next will be developers. So it needs scope for us to improve. And within India also, brands have started partnering with platforms which are offering personalized repayment options without much intrusion, non-intrusive, new collections like Situation Kotak Mahindra started partnering with them. I think that leads a lot of new openings even for the MF sector. We are yet to have that sort of a partnership with the repayment platform. I think these are some of the messages. Is happening.
Yeah, ma'am, there was some difficulty I had in hearing. I don't know, Purvi, were you able to hear this? I had the same.
No, no, there
Could
is
you hear
some
the thing,
difficulty.
or
Yeah, yeah. The voice was not very
very
clear.
clear?
We kept on losing her here and there.
Yeah. No, but I think I got some gist, which I heard was that. Sorry, ma'am, whatever and I may not be fully just doing justice to what you just said, but basically that there are learnings we can deploy from other countries on the tech side, especially on the collection and the repayment side, which can be looked at in the country. But I have, and the question is for Purvi, if you have a viewpoint, like when you look at the MFI as a sector, as an industry, there'll be each MFI will be at a different stage in their technique, their digital evolution, right? So,
Right.
can we say today that 50% are digitized, or as in on that path, and others, like, is there a scale on which MFIs can be rated? And do you do that in your industry? Do you do that, like, out of this 100, 70 are on that path, and 30 are going? Is there something we can share? I'd love to hear.
So far there is no matrix on which the company is getting measured, how much digitization has happened. But like I said, the cash disbursement earlier, which now got converted into bank disbursement, that data is being published. And now more or less everybody has reached 100% in terms of their disbursement.
Okay.
So I can just tell you by the estimates that most companies have moved their processes in terms of loan origination on a digital platform. But smaller companies would find it difficult because the portfolio is so small that the investment, the technology, and the effort may not be justifiable till the time they reach certain level. But the bigger ones obviously have moved to a complete digital process. The medium-sized ones are almost there, if not fully there, and smaller ones are like, it is an aspiration for them. So they are wanting to move to digital, but yeah, they are a little away from there. And in terms of collections, these are the two basic processes. Of course, there are a lot of other processes which have moved digital, which I'm sure we'll talk as we go on. But the major two processes, which is collection and disbursement. So collection is now the next big milestone that I think most MFIs are now aiming at. And what I have been hearing when I talk to the industry people and my colleagues there, is that people are looking at digitizing the collections over a period of next 18 to 24 months. So that is the effort that each one is putting in. And, the kind of internet penetration, I was just reading some data, and it says that the rural internet penetration or the users are increasing at a much faster pace. And by 2025, we will have more rural internet users than the urban ones. So these are, very enabling factors for the kind of aspirations that most MFIs have. So, yeah.
I have another. That brings another question. And since internet penetration is increasing, so there are two ways the industry can shape up. One is that there is a consolidation, which means the only certain number of players will survive. Other could be that the market is large enough for more and more players to come in. So which way it is going, Vivekji and Purvi and Kalpanaji, where it is, like, love to hear where in the cycle this whole thing is.
In my opinion, because India is a big country and we need more microfinance institutions on the ground. As of now, we are having 53 institutions, I think 53 or 54 NBFC, MFIs, and 70% microfinance is controlled by either small finance banks and universal banks in India. But India is a young country and huge demand is there. And it still means we all are not able to meet the entire demand of the country. And if you go by the microfinance map of India, almost 80-85% customers of microfinance, they come to closer to the markets only, district headquarters or tehsil headquarters, and even in the deeper rural area, still they are underserved. And Indian microfinance, because we were restricted by the caste and the capping on the margins were there, even the hilly areas and remote rural areas are still unserved areas are there. So with the new regulations, I think, which are being discussed now with the central bank, I think more remote areas will be covered. And I personally see that at least 200 to 150 efficient MFIs are required to serve the entire country. Means it is a big country where almost 700 districts are there. And to meet the entire demand of 2 or 3 districts, we need at least one microfinance institution for that. So that is the potential in India.
So what I hear you say is that the number of institutions today can grow 5 times in, and I'm just guessing this number, in 10 years. And still, so the size of the market is just going to keep growing for new players to come in. So that's very, very good and interesting. So,
Nilesh, sorry, just to
Yeah.
support what Vivek is saying, if you look at the data, the household debt, compared to the GDP in India is about 11%, while in the matured markets like US and China, it is close to about 50%. So we have a huge gap that is there. So I think for at least next 5 to 10 years, I don't see growth as an issue. So, we have enough opportunity and we have enough to do.
But the point which Kalpana ji mentioned in the beginning, I remember that the income has gone by 5%, but the debt is grown by 25%, right? So is that, how do we look at that? Is it more worrying, or is it does that the consumer will take more debt?
It is an opportunity as well as a stress point. I think for each institution, we have to come up with strategies, scheme. They have to come up with strategy for each geography, because we cannot have one processes which is suitable for all states, all geographies. So we have to come up with state-specific metrics to capture this, as well as the credit absorption varies from state to state. Many of the microfinance clients have graduated. They have become moving into the MSME bracket. So I think we have to be watchful because a lot of information is available. We can use iMap now and then Civil. So we have to come up with a proper profiling of the customers and give. We can use Scrub data to identify the core customers who are good to track history and give them loan according to their life cycle. I think there's a lot of graduation. They start off with a small type big shop, and then they go into a shop, and then they graduate to the next cycle. So the graduation is happening. We should be able to support the life cycle of India. So to support this, our risk and internal audit to be robust, so that we make the right person and ensures good collection.
Yeah, ma'am, there was a little difficulty, but I did hear the initial remark that while the incomes have not risen, but the debt credit has increased by 25%, which basically is an opportunity as well as a stress point. So people look at it in the way Purvi described, saying today we're 11% and we can go to 50%. So there is an opportunity, massive opportunity, which will give. But one point I do occur to me as Purvi you described this. Does this require, and I think it will require some or a lot of changes in the product side as you see the consumer and what their aspirations are and what they want to do in their lives and how they are moving their So the whole group loan concept, will that sort of change a little bit to a different concept, a different product concept? Like, how do you see that shaping up or moving? What's the directionally looking like?
The group concept has become a bit weak after COVID because center meetings are not happening, group meetings are not happening. But the whole concept of group and the social collateral has got, it is getting diluted. So we need to have a proper processes so that people, when they guarantee, not give signature, but as guarantors to one who is borrowing the loan. So that credit culture, investing in credit discipline, using technology to ensure that loans of individuals are guaranteed through the other members of the group. I think tech can play a vital role so that we can scale up and ramp up. And even I think in 5 years' time, all the village level meetings, center meetings will happen in the tech platform itself.
Got it. So, Purvi, what's your point of view?
See, as you grow, as the economy and people are also moving to the next level. So the kind of aspirations that the middle class had in 90s, the customers that we service have those kind of aspirations today. So starting from borrowing 20,000, 30,000, then the aspiration is putting TV in their house.
I think we have some difficulty in hearing Purvi. Vivekji, would you like to fill in with
See, I
some,
think I'm audible.
Yes, absolutely.
As Madam Kalpana and Purvi was saying that the group concept, definitely the challenges are there, and gradually from group lending to individual lending, the model will be improved, or it will be designed in next level. But in my opinion, the in place of joint liabilities, that is, groups are the common collection points are there, where all the village members, they come at a common place where the common point for the awareness is there, common point for education is there, and common point for the collections are there. For these purposes, definitely groups will be there, and it reduces the cost of collection and information sharing that is there. But if we expect the EMIs being paid by one group member from the other members, there may be some limitations will be there. At Satya, we are using our limited liability groups, where the liability of a group member is limited up to just 10% of tenure, or 3 or 4 EMIs only. We don't want to pass the responsibility of bad customer on good customers, and we don't want to we don't want to lose our good customers because of the bad customers. So already we have started some improvement in model, and in some way or other way, the group will be there for next 5 to 10 years, because it reduces the cost of operations. It reduces it brings more transparency in the system, because whatever is being discussed, it is being discussed in front of all the group members or all the villagers in the village. So it even reduces the cost of operations on one side, but increases the transparency on the other side. So that's why it will be there. But joint liability, definitely they will be limited to certain number, or even it is also a underwriting process. Means by just using the group guarantees, we use the underwriting how they trust each other. Means how honest they are when they are forming the groups. So that is another strength in the system. But till which extent we are able to enforce the joint liabilities for the collections, that will be a challenge, and we as industry we have to find the way.
Got it. So Purvi, sorry, we missed you for a few minutes. Love to get your thoughts continue on the product innovation and the consumer aspirations. Thank you, Vivekji.
No, so I was just saying that the aspiration of middle class, which was there in 90s, is now the aspiration of the customers that we are servicing. And as microfinance institutions, most of us, would prefer to be available to them at every stage of, their lifestyle or life cycle requirements. So it may be starting from a small group-based loan where, they borrow 20, 30,000 because they themselves are not capable enough, or they do not have credibility to show that they can borrow. And eventually they can move to a very focused and different kind of a loan. For example, buying, say, consumer products, like buying mobile or television or two-wheeler or education loan or affordable housing loan. So the product is going to change, and hopefully by then, the 10 years, we would have created enough credit record for them to move to the next level.
Got it. So let me bring a question around fraud as an example, and love to hear how what are the one or two top top digital interventions which you have seen works or has worked in reducing and bringing that down like substantially for a business. Are there any ideas which are being tried and implemented, or are being in experimental stages, or you are thinking to implement them? Love to hear, ma'am, Kalpana ma'am, your ideas, Vivekji, Purvi. Because I think that's a big question in everybody's mind in this industry.
CCTVs are really very helpful. because some movement is happening in a branch. Most of the frauds happen only at the staff level. 99% the clients are very honest. So if some unusual movement is happening, then they are able to track and we are able to uh, identify such cases and prevent such frauds. And we have to be very vigilant, have close connect with the community. And the Credit Plus initiatives are also very, very helpful. And like they keep changing the phone number. That's why the scrub data is helpful. And we do share the ringleaders data with Equifax and other credit bureau, but I think it should be red flag so that others don't use them and get into the trap. I think there should be more such exchanges. So I think to a large extent, SMS, telecalling, all this is helping us to prevent very.
Got it. So
Nilesh, on a technology side, while what ma'am said is, something that is given, just taking one step forward from there, now technological intervention. So, for example, we have come up with a customer app, so which can be, like from Play Store, you can download that app, and customer herself or somebody in the family can check the latest balance, how many EMIs have been paid, what is the last EMI credited to their account. So that is one way you can, I can't say eliminate the fraud, but at least you can reduce the fraud, because the staff is well aware that, customer can view the statement. So if one EMI is not credited, you also have an option to directly connect in case of any query. From that app itself, you can directly connect to the call center, which, lands here in the back office. So while this is just
got it. No, I think bringing visibility to the customer, and if they can see it, that brings amazing amount of transparency in the system. Like, that's there is no way to replace that. I mean, you've seen in logistics also, if you know where the package is, you know where it is.
correct.
I mean, so it's a very like a similar way to really look at it. So that's so basically one idea which you are implementing is the bringing transparency and information sharing to the customers. That's one. Vivekji, any other ideas you have seen or you're thinking to implement?
Uh, I think digitization has helped us, I think, in many ways. When I see 10, 15 years back from today, I think the ghost lending was one of the most challenging part. Means who is getting loan in that particular branch? Even in some branches of some companies, 10, 12 years before, loan files were in the branches, but there were no client was on the ground. I think there was one company, I don't want to name, but in somewhere in Indore, the total fraud was around 4 crore rupees, and it was because the entire loan agreement was created by the team and even some other people, and they have not disbursed a single rupee on the ground. They have kept the entire money, and branch team, they have utilized entire cash because it was the cash disbursements, and only the agreements were there, and they were withdrawing money from the bank, and they were using for their own purposes, even for 6 or 9 months, and created a big portfolio of 19 crore. Out of that, 4 crore was the ghost loan. In current scenario, that is not a possible situation. Means in worst case, the loan officer, they can keep just 1 or 2 EMIs with them in a worst case by making the maximum risk of their career. That is one thing. In our case, what we do is those who are not paying us today, we send a SMS them immediately after the collection meetings. At the end of the day, we just remind them that today was your due and you have not paid your installment. In case they pay the installment, they just start calling to the loan officer branch at grievance numbers, and we are able to track them immediately. I think a few months before it was not there because 99% customers were paying. But during the demonetization, during this pandemic, we started another way. Means those who are not paying today, we are sending SMS to them. Even they are paying or not paying. That is one thing. On the other side, the flow of data from branch to head office, that is very easy. We can track each and every account just at a fraction of the seconds. So when the data is very easy, tracking is very easy, and during this pandemic time, when few loan officers, they have left us because our one regional businesses. He died in somewhere in Jojnu, Rajasthan, and almost entire branch has left for almost 15 days. To replace the entire branch and to track each and every borrower, for us that was not a challenge, because with the help of geotagging, we have tracked out each and every customer in the village, and from the next day onward, our 100% meetings, our collections were almost on the track. During this pandemic time, the digitization was also tested, because in our case, we are almost paperless and almost cashless in our operations. Our 95% collections are digitized as of now. When I say digitized, it means within 1 hour of the collections, they are digitized. Almost our 30% customers at Satya, they pay directly from their account to our account, either through biometric readers, what is being carried by our loan officers, or by the different apps like Paytm or MobiKwik and other apps that is being used on the ground. So the chances of frauds has been reduced significantly on the ground. And even the monitoring is quite significant. By using the WhatsApps, we are able to do the monitoring of our branches. By using even if I want to track my some supervisor, it is not required for me to travel from here to 1,000 kilometers just to meet my one loan officer. Just on the WhatsApps, our internal company groups are through workplace, we are able to connect comfortably and we can track and we can discuss. So that is the strength of the technology. But definitely network is an issue and other challenges are there. They will be fixed in next 1 year time or 1.5 year time. But I can say that as a country or as an industry, in both ways we are on the right track, and things are going to be changed in a significant way, and operating costs will be reduced and more transparency will be on the ground. The issues which were with the microfinance 10 years before, they are not today. There are the new, some other issues are there. But the way we were more worried what is happening on the branches, we were not aware. But as of now, even I can track each and every transaction within a fraction of a second. I can meet each and every loan officer just by one call or one WhatsApp call. So that is the biggest strength the technology has given us in last 4-5 years.
So, sir, let me ask you, all of you, one question, and is as a I don't know how you look at it, but do you see your spend on tech as a percentage increased over last 5 years, and do you see it going up as a percentage of, let's say, a loan book or profit metric or revenue metric? Is it do you see it trending upwards, or like what's the or is it different between different size of businesses in the industry? Like what's the trend? And yeah,
Nilesh, in our case, means 1% is the cost of the digitization at Satya, and out of my 10% limit, means almost 10% is the digitization cost as of now. But as some point of time, it will be leveraged, and if I am able to bring it from 1% to 0.5%, I think my operating cost will be also reduced by 1 or 1.5%. The net gain will be around 2%. As of today, definitely it is a cost. But moving from here to next 2 years, I think it will be leveraged, and as an industry, we will be able to reduce our operating cost by 1 or 1.5%.
got it. Ma'am, yeah, ma'am, please.
Yeah, it is increasing. And I think we want to use the benefits of technology to build a good loan book. What we have done at Welspun is we have developed tools for village level mapping and a single due date for each repayment for each village. This has brought in a lot of metrics to ensure that the markets know the people. So we've seen good results. We know 49% of the villages they ended up paying even after COVID. So where our focus should be, where should the senior teams time should be spent, where we should have closer monitoring. So we are able to focus on the audit and keep up the some of the to make this enable. Cost will go up, will improve the ease of transactions. Right now, only we are experiencing, but it will also open new experience for more people in the community. Where why should they forego wages for 1 day to come to make payment? If they can do it at a convenient time, which is 24 hours, then payment. It will be any
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm really sorry. We were not able to hear the full full context. Purvi, I would really rely on you. Probably would have been able to catch words ma'am were saying. I was not able to get full context.
No, no, even I couldn't hear the full one because the voice, we couldn't hear anything.
Yeah. So
Is
maybe
is it better now?
yes, ma'am.
Yeah, yes,
Yeah, yeah,
now this is better.
yeah.
Okay, like so at Belstar we have done village mapping and a single due date for repayment at each village. So we are able to measure the productivity of the field force. I think it has become a very big enabler. So in the years to come, we'll be using technology, partnership with fintech firms so that we are able to service the clients in a more efficient way. That will reduce. We see investment in technology going up the customers.
Got it. So basically, you're saying with some process change, which I hear, which is one day in a month or one day in a week collection and repayment, and enabling technologies help the reduce the operation cost. But that has, of course, an investment in tech. But Purvi, do you see technology spend going up as a percentage of revenue or loan book? I'm not sure what's the best way you will recognize in your business, but
Generally, percentage of your loan book is a good way to look at it. See, for a very short time, the cost is likely to go up, but also in the market, you can also pick up sales and like the pay for what you use kind of models. So you may not be required to put a lot of money in capital investment. So you can pay only for the kind of usage that you have. So that may not put a lot of load on your expenses or on your balance sheet. But eventually, once you have all these processes in place, the productivity is bound to increase. So this is something that is must investment that you will have to invest today if you want to go to the next level. So this is something unavoidable. So
got it.
whichever way you take it, you must have it.
Let me ask you another question, and I think this is more of a question and on the industry. Does the microfinance industry is comfortable with cloud technology, cloud systems, or it is still more favoring the on-premise tech product, one-time investment? What's the thinking? What's the trend in that respect? Vivekji, Purvi?
Without doubt, I think cloud is the only option. Means definitely, yeah. So we having our own server and keeping it in our own premises only, it increases the risk and cost both. So
Yeah, I just got a call from investor when they heard that cloud businesses, so they were going to put money in my company.
that's it. That's it.
Okay, so that's so that the trend is that people will, but if I look at RBI's in a way that I don't think they're saying not to do cloud. I think there's some method of doing it is what is prescribed. And is it very, very restrictive in terms of how to use cloud, like for your core systems and stuff, or is it the there is flexibility in learning and how to implement the cloud systems, right? I mean, um, I don't know how's that shaping up between the regulator and the MFI businesses.
The only thing is that the regulators are asking for more information, more details, and how you are using it and how much you have kept it. What is the security measures you have taken there? Except
Okay,
that means they have allowed us. So that is
got it.
there. But
So
the
subject to certain compliances, they are quite okay to use it. So like, I think IPv5 or 6 or IPv4. So there are kind of compliances that they wanted. So last time when they audited us, they wanted some reports and, certain certifications, but subject to that, they were quite okay.
Got it. So let me take a pause here, and I thought we'll spend another 5, 10 minutes, 15 minutes on answering some questions that are there from the audience. So I thought maybe because we have kind of covered one few legs of the digital discussion, but I think there's this question from Mr. Arun Raj. What are the and I think it'll be a long answer. But what are the successful loan amount ranges for LMI segments? And I just want to make sure. Is that question correctly understood, Purvi, Vivek ji, Kalpana ji?
No, I don't get the question. What exactly is trying to ask? What are the successful loan amounts? So successful means where you have a lesser default. Is that
Yes, I
what
think
it
so.
means?
I would believe that that'll be the case.
So the data suggests that about 45,000 has got lesser default. And even in certain higher ticket sizes also, the default is little lower than the very small ticket sizes.
My opinion is that EMIs up to 100 rupees per day are comfortable. They are they are manageable. Means if they go beyond 100 rupees a day, means they are moving to a difficult size.
Correct. So that's about 50,000 kind of a loan for 24 months.
There's one question around lack of education, hesitancy of using a phone for monetary transaction is still the pain area in rural sector, and have faced it in collections. And what is the way ahead? Like, is this? And I heard Purvi, you said that the literacy on phone is increasing rapidly. So will this be a problem to discuss at all in a year or two, or it will continue to be an issue?
No, I think it will definitely improve. So right now, when the internet users are increasing, generally our borrowers by default are women borrowers. So women still have not reached a level where they themselves own a smartphone. So somebody in the family has a smartphone. Generally, the kids who are like, 15, 18 years or husband in the family. But the women borrowers are yet to get the smartphones. But yes, the usage is increasing, the availability of mobile phones, connections, everything is improving. So hopefully they should also get it soon.
Got it. Yeah, ma'am.
During daily transaction to the person nearby, so they understand that it's a complicated process. Their money is not getting stolen; it is going to the internet. So it depends upon investment in training the clients. So once they are comfortable and taking a couple of transactions, and they're able to see their balance, what is due to the company, then they can they're immediately getting an SMS. All those steps, if you do, I think telecalling can play a very big role in convincing the digital solutions.
Got it. So there is another question, ma'am, and Vivek ji and Purvi, you please help me answer this one. So, can we see MF sector moving to an asset-light model with branchless micro banking? Can we have like Zomato, Swiggy's of the world in microfinance sector? Is this a real possibility today, or will become possibility in for few years? What's the view?
Personally, maybe true after 10 years from today. For next 5-7 years, that is not the reality. But definitely that potential is there.
Currently, the microfinance thrives on that relationship, the comfort, the person visiting their houses and collecting the money, conducting the meetings, which is not going to go away very soon. So, yeah, I would agree that it will take some time to reach that level of operations.
And one more thing, it is not distribution, it is the disbursement of the loans and strength is the collections. Disbursement of loan is not a strength. Means you can disburse even 10,000 crore rupees in a single day. So real strength is the collections. And for that, definitely, it is a touch and technology-based model where technology assists us to reduce the cost and transparency. On the other side, human touch brings us to identify the better customers on the ground. And in microfinance, we cannot eliminate human touch, I think, for next
Absolutely.
20-25 years.
Fintech companies are promising loans within hours. So I think marrying partnership with fintech is very interesting.
Ma'am, you are not audible.
Yeah, ma'am. There was
Partnership with fintech companies can bring a lot of value. Fintech companies are promising loan within 5 hours. So I think partnership between MFIs and fintech companies can bring in new products. We can service customers at a faster pace. I feel it will be an exciting pace. But Yes, sir. It will take some more years for us to launch.
I'll say something which is, my favorite line, which I always keep talking. Microfinance or any financial services is not a game of distribution. It doesn't matter how efficient and how quickly you can distribute the money. The success lies in how efficiently you can bring the collections. How much can you collect on the due date, and how efficiently you can bring that money back in the system is the test of success for any financial services. So it's not just a distribution game.
Yeah, no, I think that's a great point because most of the questions are on collections. I think everybody's really worried about it. And I think collection, and we talked about the credit piece, which is assessing the credit and then, of course, distributing, disbursing, and then bringing it back to the table. This is one question from Swapnil. How the tech enhancements of support functions such as audit risk are important in growth of an MFI? What's the view in the panel?
Critical, very critical.
Okay. So I think if
Just a small example. Just a small example. For like we have about 200 branches now. Tallying the cash every day is a manual activity as we speak. So that takes away a lot of time. We run in shifts. The branch will have to call up. So that manual exercise is happening. We are right now contemplating an idea of putting bots instead of manual intervention, and that will at least we will be able to do that well within the turnaround time. We will not be required to work in a shift, and the process will become so smooth that we can pull out all our reports also well on time. So support function like audit, also you need not go to field for checking every small little things. Like when you geotag customer, you can also geotag your branch. And most MFIs have a policy that they don't want to fund beyond 20 kilometers or 30 kilometers. So before you actually disburse, you can actually see how far the center is from the branch, which was earlier being done manually by the auditors. And mostly it was like post-mortem. Because it would happen only post the disbursement was done. So, a lot of such processes are getting digitized, and that is absolutely critical for, the main two things, disbursement and collections, to go digital.
Got it. There's Vivek, any point here? Sorry, just want to make sure I didn't that.
Yes, I think during this pandemic time, the remote audit, I think that was the best tool we have evolved, and it has helped us in many ways. And even when we were not allowed to move at the branches, as a MD, I was able to sleep properly because of the process, governance, and controls at the branches that were properly being taken care by the audit team. So the way we have digitized even our cash book, means what Purvi was talking earlier, means it is automated now. Means we don't have any pain of closing the cash book at the end of the day, whether it is closed by the branchers. At the 12 p.m. In the night, it is automatically closed. So that is the process we have adopted in within the sector now. So things are moving in a very right direction.
Risk and audit, they complement each other. Both are unique functions. Like a risk is able to tell you in advance about the potential risk. Audit is like after the event. So I think they complement each other. Necessary because we are dealing with unsecured loans. So
Got it. There's one last question I'll take, and in the interest of time, we'll conclude. So, do the MFIs work on like partnership, like a DSA model? And I don't exactly understand this question. Maybe it means that do you partner with DSS to source, or does it mean that you would source for someone else as well? I don't understand that fully. If yes, the onus of collections can lie on them only. That way, it is done in banking, or it is similarly done in banking and NBFC. So, is DSA a concept in MFI space?
I would like to answer this question. As an industry, we don't have a DSA model. We have our own employees, our own branches, and trained employees on the ground. And with the help of them, we deal our business. But on the other side, we work as a banking correspondent for the banks. And where the final approval of the loans is with the bank, and there are certain branches with every MFI where from certain banks we are having a BC arrangement, and we lend to the customers. but the collection responsibility is with us, and even for the losses, we share up to certain level. That is there.
Got it.
We work with
Yeah, ma'am.
7 service providers. It is proving to be very efficient, especially when we go to a new geography to understand about the potential risks. And the portfolio is doing very well. And also, smaller MFIs who are not able to access credit from formal credit institutions. So, in this situation, MFIs as
Got it. Got it. Thank you, ma'am. Purvi, if you want to summarize the today's discussion in your in your words, love to hear. Given what some of the questions audience asked, love to hear your story, your perspective from moving forward from here.
Before I'll just talk about the very recent events. So before Corona, whether to go digital or not was sort of people were making choices that okay, we can wait for some more time, and we can't afford to spend right now. But Corona and lockdown and lockdown related issues, they have really put a lot of pressure on each one of us to go digital, because such events might keep coming, particularly the climate related external shocks are likely to happen more often, and hence the requirement to go digital is going to be much higher. It's for your own survival. So you don't have a choice now. It is just a question of how soon you want to do it. And at an industry level, I'm sure we are going to get benefited immensely, because if one person is driving digitization, the customers get educated and everybody in the process gets the advantage. So if the bigger MFI start working on it a little more faster and start doing more digital transactions, for overall industry, I think it's going to be very, very positive. So digitization is the way forward, and we don't have a choice.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for helping me summarize that. I don't want to be an imposter trying to talk MFIs in and out, not knowing much, but I think the message is loud and clear, and I heard some very interesting points. Fundamentally, the character of the industry has gone through enormous change in the last 10 years. That is actually exceptional. Even though we may not be the leader as you described M-Pesa's success story but given the vastness of this country and the geopolitical mix and so many varieties of people we have in this country, pulling this off and making it a success and having 54 institutions serving the needs of the underbanked, I think it's a huge achievement by anything which we look at. And digitization is just going to increase the share, take these services down to more and more people. And it's heartening to know that the market is there and it can grow by 5 times in the next 10 years. Actually, that gives me some more confidence to build more solutions for you all. So there'll be enough buyers to buy our service. But anyway, that's on the lighter note. So thank you so much, Kalpana ji. Thank you so much, Vivek ji. Thank you so much, Purvi, for participating and joining with me on this session. Really appreciate your time, and thank you so much. And you have a good weekend.
Thank you so much.
You have a good weekend.
It was nice talking to you.
You have a good weekend collecting all the money which has been lent.
Thank you so much.
Have a good one.
Thank you.
Bye.